Fresh from the showcase here at Swiss Watch Expo, we are talking about the TAG Heuer Carrera. If you're not familiar with this watch, it really is one of the premier chronograph watches in the world. If you think about the Rolex Daytona, you think about the Omega Speedmaster, the Breitling Navitimer, this really goes hand in hand with those watches. And a lot of the history of watches is really more intertwined than you might think at first glance. Now, this watch is really important in the history and the development of the chronograph as we know it now, which is arguably, along with the dive watch, something like a Rolex Submariner, really the two most prominent segments of the Swiss watch industry at this point. The Carrera started as the brainchild of Jack Heuer. It wouldn't exist without him. He was the fourth generation Heuer to head up the company that bears his family's name. I think they started the company in 1863. But by the 1960s, he was the fourth one to come along. He was not really a watchmaker by trade. He wasn't a watch designer by trade. He had been to engineering school and architecture school. He was obsessed with the modern idea of the simplicity of form following function. So he was all about the idea that something should be designed to look in such a way that it would perform its function at the highest level that it possibly could. Now, when he met some prominent race car drivers at the 24 Hours of Sebring in 1962, it was like a change to his mental outlook on the world of what was involved and what was needed in the world of wristwatches. Now, they kind of let him know about the Formula One world, which was becoming extremely popular. They had let him know that there were some races that were extremely exciting. One of them was the Carrera de Panamerica, which was a race in Mexico that was notoriously dangerous and adventurous. In only 5 years that it ran, 27 people died in this race. I mean, it was a crazy race. They finally discontinued it in 1955 because of the risk, but he liked the name of it, and he liked the name Carrera de Panamerica because the name Carrera sounds good in just about any language. So he came home with the idea that he was going to design a tool watch, a chronograph. Omega was already out with their Speedmaster from 1957. Rolex was just about to release the sort of Daytona named watch in 63, 64. And so he decided that this was a major player that he could play into. So back then in the 60s, watch companies didn't so much produce an entire watch in-house. They might get the case from a case supplier, the movement from a movement supplier, the dial from a dial company, the crystal from a crystal company, the strap from a strap company. And it was what was commonly done in the industry. It's really not so much now. Now there's a big push for companies to make everything in-house. But then there was a lot more kind of cross-pollination between some of these watches. So if you look back at the original Heuer Carrera watches, they actually have the same dial from the Rolex Daytona and the Omega Speedmaster of the time. They were made by the same company. It was a dial company called Singer. And if you look at the fonts, they're exactly the same. The sub-dials are exactly the same. The baton markers are exactly the same. And so that's why there was a kind of a constriction on the creativity that was involved, because it would cost a lot extra, say, to make a different shaped case than what the case companies were already making. So you kind of picked a case, modified it a little bit, picked a dial, modified it a little bit, and that's how he came out with this watch. So in 63, when the Carrera came out, the notable design elements were already in place that you can see here. It had the beveled lugs had just started. It had the no crown guards, which was common. The ring around the dial was a new invention at the time to hold the crystal in, and Jack Heuer decided that he would go ahead and paint the indices on that ring so it would do double duty and it would clean up the dial. A lot of the chronographs at the time were used for military applications, for artillery, for timing, calculating distances, that sort of thing. And the dials were very confusing to look at because there was a lot on them. So he really wanted to clean up the dial, make it a watch that you could really be going very, very fast in your race car and still have immediate legibility. The world of sports cars was very different in the 1960s than it is now. And having a little wrist computer on your wrist that could calculate time, average speed, that sort of thing really would have come in handy. Though the modern watches, it's interesting, they didn't start until 1996, and the reason for that is that even though the Carreras were made all the way through the early 80s, at that time when the company changed management, they were sold to TAG, stands for Techniques d'Avant-Garde. They were a company that was involved in all sorts of high-tech materials, aviation, racing, and they produced some lower-end watches through the 80s. And then all of a sudden, in 1996, they decided that they wanted to relaunch the Carrera, which hadn't been made in 10 or 15 years. They actually had Jack Heuer come back and relaunch his own watch. And so in 96, they did it very similarly to the way he had done it originally in the 60s. The movement is the caliber 16, you can see here. And at that time, the caliber 16 was sourced. We've talked before about the Valjoux 7750 ETA movement. That's one of the bulletproof workhorse movements in the watch world. It's found in probably well over 100 models use the same movement because it's so well designed. And just about any time that you see 3 registers in subdials in this shape, and then the date on a chronograph, most of the time it's a Valjoux 7750 based watch. They have a distinctive feel when you push the start-stop pusher on the top and the reset at the bottom. It has kind of a real chunk feel to it when you push it. It's a very positive feel. Some people don't like it. I actually like it because it really feels like you've done something and you know for sure when you've hit it and when you've started and when you've stopped. Though it's one of the greatest movements ever made. You can see here, ranging from about 41 to 43 millimeters, we've got a few different iterations of this watch. Same kind of design with the lug shape, the no crown guards, the inner ring, the Valjoux 77 based movement. And there's some titanium models, titanium with PVD coating. A lot of variety as far as design. You can really personalize your Carrera by what color scheme you like. They have some of them with alternate colored subdials like this one. The original Carrera had same color subdials to set it apart from what they were doing over at Rolex. But when the automatic chronographs came out in 1969, the case that Jack Heuer decided to put it in was, of course, the Carrera. So that conglomerate that included Hamilton, Breitling, Dubois-Dupree, and Heuer, when they came out with the first automatic chronographs in 1969, this is the watch that had it. So this watch really ranks right up there with the Speedmaster and the Daytona and the Navitimer as one of the most important chronographs, and yet it's a bargain here at Swiss Watch Expo. Our certified pre-owned watches are serviced, they're tested, they're timed, they're going to work perfectly, they're going to look for the most part like they've never been worn, although some have some character marks. That's just part of the history of the watch. But you can definitely pick out something unusual. One of the most unusual ones we've got here, this uses the newer in-house movement, the caliber 1887, and this was a Japan domestic market only watch that was to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the chronograph, something that Heuer had been involved in since their very beginning. They did all sorts of professional timing devices before they even got into the watch world. But you can see this one, the movement is turned sideways. The crown and pushers are here on the top. There were only 200 of that watch made. And then here we have one that uses the same movement. This is, again, kind of a historic throwback watch. But you can see it has a different layout of the subdials. Again, this is the in-house 1887. The newest version of the traditional Carrera look is going to involve in-house movements. They're the caliber 01, caliber 02. You'll see these in the 1887, where most of these watch companies are bringing everything in-house, and that's what you'll see at TAG Heuer as well. But we always have a nice selection of the ones with the caliber 16 based on the Valjoux 7750, and they're really a great price. So check them out, give us a call, click the bell, click the like, leave your comments, tell us which one of these dial combinations you like, and shop our Carrera chronographs, one of the most important chronographs ever made.